Welcome to another episode of GBLOC's Go Deeper podcast. My name is Sheila. I am the GBLOC community and program director, and it is my absolute pleasure to have our guest today, Edward Bourelly. He is an executive leader with over 25 years of marketing experience in various fields, working for brands like Nike, Levi's, Planet Fitness, the Home Depot, and New Era Cap. He has received multiple awards for his innovative and impactful marketing work, such as the Nike Maxim winner, the Nike Brass Knuckles Marketing Award, and the 2017 NBA Apparel Vendor of the Year. He is passionate about embracing and understanding culture, fostering team building and leadership, and promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Welcome, Edward. Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me. You're making me sound important. Done some
That's
things in
my
my life.
job.
Well,
uh,
thank you. That's very kind.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. First question we ask all our guests: tell us your why. What do you consider to be your purpose or your mission here in
Yeah.
the world?
I mean, my purpose, I really feel outside of being a father and loving my kids is really working to elevate my community. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in a very tight-knit community, surrounded by famous people, surrounded by people in all different kinds of professions, and we work together. I have such fond memories growing up in that community where people support each other from our teachers and doctors and the small merchants, etc. And that dynamic seems to be gone in a lot of ways. And I feel that it's my purpose really and my why to keep going after that and keeping that spirit alive of a community that's connected and that's elevating each other. So as an African American that's been in marketing as long as you said I was, um, I feel there's a lot I can teach people and mentor people and help others along their way as I was helped along mine. So that's my professional why.
Oh, wonderful. Um,
Mhm.
so do you have do you have a personal why? I'm curious.
I have a personal why. I think, I just really want to elevate my family, as much as possible and elevate and that's not just my immediate family, but my extended family, which is my community.
Mhm.
I feel I grew up with very strong mentors in my life, strong men, from my father, my grandfather, my grandmother, my mother, and they just were people that loved their family and that were always looking to help others and work with others and help elevate them. So I just feel that's my personal why. It kind of connects with my professional, but
Yeah,
that's my personal too.
wonderful. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that. And what is the one big idea you hope you can bring to the world, through your work, and
Yeah.
why? What do you hope happens as a result?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is kind of breaking the barriers around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have a lot of experience in that space as an African American male, and I stepped into industries where I didn't see a lot of people like me, especially in leadership positions. I've been blessed along the way to be in a leadership position, be in leadership positions. And I just feel that there's a lot more work to be done, and there's a lot more understanding that we need to all be open to, in our professional world. And I just want to keep championing that as much as possible.
Right. And
Mhm.
so just based on what you just shared, how do you seek to cultivate deeper understanding, you know, to really
Yeah.
to how do you like do you have any like what are the I'd be just curious about like if there's anything that you particularly say or help to like cultivate or instigate to foster more understanding in the spaces that
Yeah.
you work in.
I think, it starts with two things, right? And that is one, humility. And
Mm,
humility really is grounded in not being a place where you don't know things. As you can be in a place where you have great knowledge, but you're asking yourself, what else is there? What
mm,
else is out there? And that leads to innovation. So
mhm.
that's the first thing. The second thing is empathy. How can I put myself in the other person's shoes and being open to that, in the conversations that I have with people and talk to people that you may not talk to or engage with before,
Yeah.
throughout my career. And I've met a lot of different people of a lot of different backgrounds,
Mhm.
and it's given me a true holistic view of people, and not to close anybody off. It's just
Yeah.
so I think engaging people, try to eliminate your biasness when you're meeting folks, and and leading with those two things is going to give you a greater understanding.
I love that.
Mhm.
Humility and empathy.
Yes.
That is, and how I love how you spoke about the connection between humility and innovation as well, because you don't know
Yes.
what you
Yes.
don't know.
And the best leaders that I've had in my career, from CEOs, managers I've had in my career, they led with that. And
Mhm.
it made you work differently. It made you engage differently. It made you felt empowered, you know.
Mhm.
And you don't think about humility and empowerment, but when a leader leads that way, and
Mhm.
is asking you to seek out the answers and to be curious and to go after things, that empowers you, and you enjoy your work a lot more. You feel more purpose with work.
Absolutely. That's
Hmm.
great. So we're going to go into what we consider to be the three pillars of GBLOC, which is connection, community, and contribution.
Hmm.
And so I want to dive into some questions around connection. So, how do you choose who you actively build a professional relationship with,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
even a personal one? And what's important to you in those kinds of in when you're, yeah, what's important to you? What do you look for?
Yeah, I have a lot of connections. I mean, if
Yeah, I
you
can
look at my
imagine.
LinkedIn, I think I have close to 10,000 connections over the years. But the people who I have built the biggest connections with were people that we really were in the trenches together. We had
Mm,
ideas and we brought them to fruition. And
mhm.
they could have been hard, they could have been big, they could have been small, whatever, but we worked together, and we all were keeping our eyes on the prize.
Mhm.
And when you have that type of history with somebody professionally,
Yeah,
you build that connection,
yeah.
and you always, even if you don't talk to them every day, which no one expects that, but
Mhm.
they're people that I haven't seen even in 10 to 15 years, but because we put in the work together and we had
Yeah,
ideas together and we brought them to fruition in a way that we felt this great sense of accomplishment, it, you know, it just brought us closer together,
yeah,
so. Mhm.
yeah. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And that makes a lot of sense to me as well when I think about who's kind of like who I still keep in touch with in my professional
Yeah.
world, even if we haven't worked together for ten years or more. So I
Yeah.
love that.
And there's also it goes back to those other two things about humility and empathy. It's also, when you through the work you build that personal connection, and you can just be who you are, on a lot
Mhm.
of levels. And that person appreciates that. They like being around you, they like working with you, they like, taking on challenges with you, celebrating with you. Those
Mhm.
that builds that extra personal connection with whoever you're working with or partnering with.
100%.
Mhm.
I'm in total agreement with you. So another question for you are what are some of your favorite questions to ask when
Oh,
you're getting to
wow.
know someone and
Yeah.
why?
Getting to know someone, huh? I think I always ask people what's their background.
Okay.
from ethnicity, where their parents are from, how they grew up. When I was in college, I was the president of the International Students Association. And I was born in the US, but my father was an immigrant from Haiti.
Mhm.
And I really was captivated by cultures,
Mm,
different cultures, where people came from. And I'm still, very curious about that. I love to travel. I love, I've been to many countries in my life, but that's usually one of the first things I want to find out about somebody, and
yeah.
it just it makes great conversation. So
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
culture also really shapes, how someone thinks,
Yes.
and it informs their perspective. So I think it's also really, really wise as well.
Yes.
So
And
yeah.
and it's one of the first questions I ask anybody when they're interviewing me. What's
Mm,
the culture of the organization? There's of course the culture in terms of your background and
mm,
your values and everything, but I also equate that to the culture of organizations.
mhm, mhm.
It's the first question I always ask
Yeah,
anybody, when I'm exploring opportunity with working with somebody. So but
yeah,
its culture means a lot to me. It's I love it.
great.
Mhm.
So we'll go into some questions around communities. So what are the communities you actively engage in and
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. The first one is really I'm on a board of an organization called Link Unlimited Scholars, and it's a non-for-profit. It's been around over 60 plus years, and it helps African American kids through the process, through mentorship, through resources, et cetera, get them, from being middle schoolers all the way up to getting them through college.
Mhm.
I grew up with an amazing, support system. And I find that African American youth don't have those same
Yeah.
resources available to them. So the organization really prides itself on providing those resources and mentoring
Mhm.
for young African American kids,
Mhm.
and not just mentoring, them through high school, et cetera, also through college.
Right.
I've had some great mentors in my lifetime, and it's one of the biggest things I'm engaged in helping the youth really find their passion and helping support them along their way to being professionals.
And do you consider yourself to be a community builder? And if so, what are some of the actions you take to build community?
That's a tough question. And I never really thought of myself as a community builder per se. And when I think about builder, I think of like as a leader, somebody creating something. I just find myself as part of a community, and a contributor, more of a,
Mm,
so I mean, I guess you can equate building with contribution, but I
right.
just feel I'm part and I just want to contribute in one way or the other. So that I guess the answer is yes.
Yeah,
I
I
see
think that's a
myself
really
as a
interesting
builder.
way to think about it, right? Because
Yeah.
contribute it's like you can have a community, but if people aren't contributing to one another,
Yes.
then there really is no community, even if you bring people together.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And
that makes a
I
lot
know
of
people that bring, people from all backgrounds together, and they focus on that, right? I don't necessarily do that, but I'm a part of that, and
yeah,
I'm contributing to that. And I hope,
yeah,
I'm giving something to help that have that community thrive.
that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So actually that goes into contribution. So can you tell us your favorite story of creating impact for someone in your life or through your work?
Oh wow, that's a tough one. But it's is a very good question. This didn't go towards one individual per se, but when people ask me what was one of the biggest things I've done in my career, when I was at Nike, we had the opportunity to bring something called World Basketball Festival to Chicago, and this is festival they do every 4 years. It's a made up festival Nike had with the basketball community of the world. And it's been in different cities throughout the world. And we pitched when I was with Nike for it to come to Chicago. And at the time, and what's still happening today, Chicago is really, experiencing its own crisis with gun violence, right?
Mhm.
So we wanted to bring the love of the brand that we know that knew that the communities here had to the community and activate in a way which made kids in particular and just the whole basketball community come together in a peaceful way and
Mhm.
just celebrate togetherness and celebrate basketball in a whole different
Mhm.
way. So we took over the south side of Chicago. We built out basketball courts. It's a big competition between different cities throughout the world in basketball. We brought Team USA there at the time. We had workshops where kids were actually meeting Anthony Davis, meeting Scottie Pippen, meeting Cheryl Swoops, and just people that were icons and not just athletes, but people that like Scoop Jackson, who's a great journalist, artist, etc. And we really were trying to inspire kids to think differently about going after their dreams and how these very people they're looking at and admiring came from their communities, right?
Right. Hmm.
Anthony Davis from the South Side of Chicago. Scoop Jackson's from the South Side of Chicago. Hebrew Brantley from the South Side of Chicago. So just letting kids know that it's not impossible, that they can
Mm.
reach their dreams, etc. I
Yeah.
don't know a particular story of who it impacted, but I
Right.
know it impacted, a
Absolutely.
number
Yeah.
of people. And I
Yeah.
remember those types of moments throughout my life. And I'm hoping it provided that same type of inspiration, that I received with those types of moments.
100. That sounds really meaningful. And
Mhm.
yeah, I've definitely had people I've looked up to who I've met, and those interactions were definitely impactful.
Yeah. And
So
it's amazing too, because people don't realize how they can impact somebody, right? You can have a short conversation with somebody, and that person remembers it for their entire life,
yeah.
and that's why I always am meaningful and who I talk to, how I talk to them, how I support people, how I volunteer to help folks. You just never know what you said to somebody when and how that inspired them, or maybe it didn't. But um, um, I've had plenty of moments of that throughout my life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the other question I have for you is, what does a better world to you look like? Like, how would you define that? And
Yeah,
how do you see yourself participating in creating that?
yeah. I think, it goes back to to my own two pillars I talked about and through um humility and empathy. I
Mm,
mean, I really feel that people have lost that personal connection with one another. And technology has been a little bit of accelerator to
yeah,
that. you know,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
then surviving through a pandemic. I mean, it just really, I think, caused people to be a little bit more disconnected than I've ever seen in my
Mhm.
life.
Yeah.
So I really think, just having, empathy and towards other people and what they're going through. And it goes back to what I mentioned earlier that we all want to be happy. We all have a lot of the same goals in life,
Mhm.
and folks understanding that, and I think if we approach each other that way, set aside the politics, set aside religion, set aside whatever it may be that tends to cause conflict with folks.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
we can be more connected as people, and technology is not a bad thing. First of all,
No,
let's
no,
say that
it's
it
not, but
has
it's how
opened
it's
up the
being
world.
used, right? And
Yes,
I think technology when used with consciousness,
yes,
intention, and moderation,
yes,
amazing, right? But once
yes,
we're relying on it to replace or fill or distract in any way, that's when it can start to get really,
Yes, yes,
really not
yes.
helpful.
And look up. I mean, people are like this all day.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah,
I
it's like
personally
it's
cannot. I can't.
yeah,
Literally, my body shut. Like it's like
yeah.
8 p.m. at the latest. My everything is closed, and I
Yeah,
don't usually open my computer till like 9:30 because
yeah.
it's just like, yeah,
And I tell my kids, I'm like, whatever you're seeing on your phone right now is not nearly as interesting as if you look up and look
yeah,
around you and experience the world around you. You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
and we've gotta get away from that.
yeah.
Um we've gotta find balance with that.
Yeah, because
That-
we lose disconnection. We lose connection to ourselves, right? And I think it's
Yes.
like if you're not connected to yourself, know how you're feeling, know what your thoughts are, know what, your internal experiences, it's hard to experience connection with anyone else.
Yes,
So because
exactly.
connection starts with you, right? So that makes a
Exactly.
lot
And
of sense
being
to me.
and being present in the moment. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of things happening around us, take it in.
yeah,
It's a lot more exciting than you watching to see how other people are living their lives,
hundred
or
percent.
supposedly living their lives.
Suppose that's the right answer, supposedly.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave it with the final question. If you could run G Block for a day, what would you do with the community and you have unlimited resources?
Wow, that's a tough question. I think physically bringing the community together. I do think physical connection is very important,
Yeah.
and then us as a group take on a challenge and go after it and solve it.
Mm,
With our
yeah,
collective minds, our collective perspectives,
yeah,
and just solve it, make it happen.
I
Especially
love
if,
that.
if you have unlimited resources. I mean, the
Yeah,
problem could be anything,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
I love
yeah.
that. Well,
Mhm.
thank you so much for your time. You just the insights you provided were so at least in my opinion, really helpful and wise. So thank you for being here. We're so grateful to have you part of the community. And yeah, we'll end on that note.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I